Hello, Peter.
Hello.
Good
Hope
to
you're
see you.
fine.
Shekhar Saab, good evening. How are you?
Good evening to you. Good evening, sir. Ambassador Bhatia, good evening.
Welcome. Very distinguished colleague from the Navy. Always a great supporter. Thank you very much for being here.
Good evening, sir. Admiral Shekhar, sir.
Oh, good evening, Excellency. How are you? You're still in Vietnam?
Yes, I'm still in Vietnam. I wish I could say I'm still in Mumbai.
I think you should come as High Commissioner in Delhi now.
We
You should be
agree.
in Delhi then.
We agree. That'd be fantastic.
That'll be great.
Manjit, you can start. Others
We can start? Okay, all right. Well, let's get going. So welcome everybody to the 6th Gateway House KAS webcast. Today we have a story about a neighboring country who has been wondrous in their growth, and that is Bangladesh, which is really the Vietnam of South Asia. We're here to discuss how Bangladesh got to this fantastic position and what India can learn from Bangladesh and from its experience and its journey. So this month of March is being celebrated as Mujib Year, which is the birth anniversary of the father of the nation of Bangladesh, Bangla Bandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Also being celebrated this year is the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh's independence, as well as 50 years of diplomatic relations between Bangladesh and India. Our relationship between Bangladesh and India has really taken a very positive journey, and it's never been better. As for Bangladesh's growth, a country that began 50 years ago as a case study for development is now on top of the global GDP charts. GDP growth in 2019 was 8.4%, that was twice that of India's, and it's one of the few countries to have maintained a positive growth during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a proud moment for Bangladesh and also for the Indian subcontinent. Just as Vietnam amazed the world with its fast-paced growth, so too with Bangladesh, which has displayed a will to grow despite the odds. Bangladesh followed a similar strategy to Vietnam. Its rise is directly connected with the textiles and garments industry, which accounts for 80% of the country's exports. And Bangladesh has over the years enhanced its agriculture, power generation, natural gas exploration, pharmaceuticals, foreign remittances. Part of it is Bangladesh's really unique, sort of its USP is Bangladesh being a global leader in microfinance, and that is a model that it has exported. The world's most successful and pioneering microfinance organization like Grameen and Brac have aided small business in the country and regionally. So Bangladesh is now faring better on infant mortality, sanitation, everything. It is now this year going to step out of the least developed country zone into a developing country zone, just like India. So what can India, South Asia, and the world learn from Bangladesh's successful development trajectory? We have with us today 3 terrific experts, and they are special in more ways than I can say. First, Ambassador Samina, who before her position as Bangladesh's envoy to Vietnam, was the dynamic Consul General in Mumbai. She is still remembered as if she is present. Such has been her impact. We have Dr. Ahsan Mansur of the Brac Bank. It has played a crucial role in Bangladesh's development and is a model around the world. And we have Madhu, the General Manager and Country Head of Tata Motors in Bangladesh. The Tata Group has been a pioneer in investing in Bangladesh, and we are keen to hear his views. Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, who you all know, will be our moderator this evening. Rajiv?
Thank you. But I think now it's over to
Peter.
Peter.
Peter Ramel, who is the country head of and country representative of KAS, our long-time and successful partner in our webcast. Peter?
Thank you, Manjit. Ambassador Samina, Mr. Madhu Singh, Dr. Ahsan Mansur, Ambassador Bhatia, dear Manjit, of course, friends, ladies and gentlemen. With the onset of the Industrial Revolution, the world witnessed the rise of several manufacturers concentrated in the UK, Germany, USA, later Japan, South Korea, before they gradually shifted to the services segment and high-tech manufacturing. Recently, the Wall Street Journal has mentioned Bangladesh as becoming the economic bull of South Asia due to its impressive growth in the manufacturing and export sector, primarily driven by the booming garment industry, what you already mentioned, Manjit. While the exports of its neighbors, India and Pakistan, have gradually declined marginally. Not only has Bangladesh seen a significant economic growth and decreasing poverty in the last decade, but 2 weeks ago, the UN Committee for Development Policy has again recommended Bangladesh's graduation from its least developed country status. Bangladesh has met for the second time all required criteria regarding per capita income, human resources, and economic vulnerability. This achievement not only strengthens the role of Bangladesh in South Asia, but also attracts, and now that is my perspective, and it intensifies the focus of Europe in the region in terms of FDI and trade, and Germany is no exception on that one. Through the combination of the country's young demographic structure and growing middle class, the economy has the possibility to create a wide pool of expertise and sustainably diversify its economy by investing into the IT sector. Though its export industry is still overwhelmingly focused on garment manufacturing, I think Manjit had the figure of 80%, that is a large proportion, but also it creates some vulnerability. And therefore, of course, the next step for Bangladesh would be to transition towards higher value addition forms of manufacturing and exporting, following the footsteps of Vietnam in establishing itself in the global manufacturing supply chains. Let me give you some interesting statistical comparisons from an interactive website developed by Royal Oak Interactive Incorporated. Please treat these as a back of the envelope figures and not cast in stone, but fairly realistic. So maybe I add a pinch of salt to that. So if you would live in India instead of in Vietnam, you are 2 times more likely to be unemployed. And if you live in India instead of Bangladesh, you are 46% likely to be more unemployed than in Bangladesh. In India, you die 5 years sooner than in Vietnam and 3 years sooner than in Bangladesh. But let's have another comparison. In Vietnam, you're about 78% more likely to be in prison and 26% more likely to be in prison in Bangladesh than in India. So interesting comparisons. If you look at the sector, you would spend in Vietnam 40% less money on health than in Vietnam, but 2.5 times more than in Bangladesh. And maybe at the last, if you compare the income, Vietnam and India would be about the same money, but in India, you would make 90% more money than in Bangladesh. So that also shows something maybe about competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, you can draw your own conclusion. But what is clear that there are definitely something that can be emulated by one country, what other countries have done or are doing, and I think that's our topic. With emerging tensions between China and the West, and Chinese regional hegemonic ambitions and coercive behavior, many European states are reconsidering their relations to the country. Germany, embedded in the European Union, has a great interest in participating in Asia's growth dynamics and in being involved in the Indo-Pacific region, as well as in upholding global norms. It has launched its own Indo-Pacific policy guidelines, which highlights the federal government's support to inclusive regional cooperation initiatives. Germany's position regarding Asia points out that neither a region characterized by unipolarity nor by bipolarity is desirable. And Bangladesh, as a country that maintains good relations with both India and China, is part of the aspiration of a balanced and stable region. Today's discussion will also focus on leveraging learnings And hereby I'd like to bring in a German perspective. Germany, as we know it today, was built after the end of the Second World War in 1945, and the process continues. It was the experience and the learning from the Allied forces that formed the way Germany is structured and organized today. History has shown that to get ahead in this world, you do need to learn from your own mistakes and from others. It was Konrad-Adenauer, after whom our organization is named, who understood exactly that when he was pushing the West integration policy as a German chancellor. He knew that Germany was better off with strong economic and political relationships with the Western powers. It was that policy that helped Germany achieve its economic success in Europe. Before I yield the floor, I would just like to first enunciate that being committed to the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung's principles, I strongly believe that socio-economic and human development and multilateral cooperation in trade and security matters aren't separate issues, but common pieces of a framework of stability, which are tightly connected and mutually dependent. With Prime Minister Modi's planned visit to Bangladesh, the cooperation between the two countries is set to get more intense and rewarding. Rewarding also for the development of Indian Northeast. And lastly, with Bangladesh, India has been successfully acting East, but with the rest of the East, it has been more looking. With this tongue-in-cheek comment, I conclude my remarks, and I look forward to an undoubtedly thought-provoking event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter, for those thought-provoking opening remarks. And it's possible that there may be some discussion on some aspects, which is exactly what your purpose is. I think it's very important to note that. Now, I would like to start straight away our characteristic question and answer session. I would begin with some questions that we have crafted out of our own research and perspective. And then I would also take in some questions from the audience. And let me begin with Ambassador Samina Naz. And it's a real privilege for us to have you here on this panel today. Let me congratulate you again, you and your great nation on Mujib Porsho. This is the triple celebrations that Manjeet has already explained. And we feel very happy that this particular event is being organized virtually as part of the larger celebrations, which will culminate in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to India very, very soon. So in that context, let me put my first question to you, Your Excellency. And the question is, how do you assess the achievements of Bangladesh in tackling COVID-19 pandemic and the management of economy in its crucial aspects? Because we really need to hear on these two things directly from you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Ambassador Bhatia. First of all, I would like to extend my very sincere appreciation to Manjeet and Gateway House and Madam Nilam Deo, all concerned. A very deep acknowledgement for remembering me to bring back to the panel discussion. I feel really wonderful. Thank you so much. And as Ambassador Bhatia rightly mentioned, now it is this year we're celebrating many occasions. It's the Golden Jubilee of Bangladesh's independence. It's the Mujib year, the birth centenary of the father of the nation. And also there are other occasions like we have just been celebrated, these are being celebrated, the 50th years of the 7 March historic speech of the father of the nation, which called for our independence. It was the declaration of our independence, which has been also registered as the UNESCO World Heritage. I am mentioning this because yesterday we had a very big program on the birth centenary, 101st birth anniversary of our leader, father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and I had the pleasure of translating his speech into Vietnamese in a book, and we unveiled it with a honorable member of parliament here. And most importantly, another celebration is Bangladesh-India bilateral diplomatic relations Golden Jubilee. So it gives me immense pleasure to be here on this very joyous occasion, and also very significantly on the eve of the visit of Honorable Narendra Modi ji to Bangladesh to participate in our Golden Jubilee celebration. So I feel really very, very enthusiastic to be a part of this discussion. And I pay my deep tribute to our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, for whose leadership now, you know, we are as a Bangladeshi nation, we stand tall, and we always thank our great neighbor India for standing beside us during our independence. I think it's in our system, it's our mind psyche that, you know, we always feel that, you know, India is our great friend and neighbor, and would like to see much more. Of course, the present time we are having the bestest relation, but I'm sure there are much more we can, as I was talking to Ambassador Bhatia, that, you know, the official relations are there, but there are so many other people-to-people contacts, connections, and I feel today's this panel discussion is one of them. And coming back to the issue, yes, the year 2020 has been a challenging year for all over globally, whether it comes to economy or diplomacy or political or social development, whatever. COVID-19 pandemic has not spared anyone. And it has been saying by many that during this pandemic, despite all the challenges, Bangladesh has done a remarkable job in tackling this global pandemic, and at the same time, keeping our economy on almost at full functionality. Just for 15 to 21 days during the peak time, Bangladesh, you know, observed lockdown, but very soon we started opening up, reopening our economy and coming back to all the functionality. And our government and all the machineries and people, the public sector, private sector, everyone, they are coming back to work and working with the best possible calculations to stabilize our productions, ecosystems, and keep our trade and investment flowing. And Bangladesh is doing what our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina very correctly described as a striking balance between life and livelihood. And our Honorable Prime Minister announced many packages to stand beside the poor and the needy and the helpless, and these provided as a social safety net, and also, you know, not as a financial support, but we also put some economic package was also there, providing even direct money help and food help to people, the health advisory, the public. All the health system, and these all the government offered special packages, stimulus packages, not only to keep momentum of economic activities and to maintain the trend in growth and development, but this only to maintaining this is not only maintaining our own macroeconomic policy, but what I think that, you know, this was also that the global supply chain remained uninterrupted. And despite the crisis, it is a great relief for us that our per capita income has risen to $2,064, and we maintained a GDP growth rate during only for the 2020 COVID pandemic year, 5.2%, which is highest in Asia. And also before that, you all are may kindly be aware that our GDP growth rate gone to above 8%. And these all are happening, the relentless leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, steadfast bold leadership and her guidance, and she personally involved herself to move us forward. And this has been very recently recognized, especially for the COVID pandemic handling situation. She has been recognized one of the inspiration 3 topmost leader in the Commonwealth, side by side New Zealand's Prime Minister and the Barbados' Prime Minister. And these all are our due to our Prime Minister's leadership, and there are other international sightings there that that Bangladesh tried to maintain our tackling the situation and manage our economy. And Bangladesh is a development miracle now in terms of sustainable GDP growth and socio-economic parameters, and we have become a vibrant economy from what was 50 years ago as a bottomless basket when we started. And Bangladesh is well poised to become the 25th largest economy in the world by the year 2035. And we have huge potential to become an international hub for business and manufacturing hub. And we would like to become global incubators for innovation and entrepreneurship. And recently, as Peter mentioned, Wall Street Journal mentioned Bangladesh as the economic bull for South Asia. It's really a modicum of little happiness for us. And there are also Washington-based think tank Heritage. It said that Bangladesh has the most economically free country in South Asia. And Bangladesh's score increased in government integrity, tax burden, business freedom, and labor freedom. So these all gives us occasion to, and most importantly, we are getting out of the LDC status to middle income country. What our Prime Minister's visionary 2021 will be a middle income country, and by 2041 will be a developed one. And we are trying to reach to that mark. And these are all possible. I think our this economic and social growth all are possible through our resilience, determination, and innovative and indomitable spirit.
I think that's a very good,
yes.
very good formula you have just mentioned. I'll come to you on that very note, because I know that the remarkable success of Bangladesh, not just in the immediate term, but in the larger terms, is very, very inspiring to the neighbors and to the region. So with your permission, let me just turn to Dr. Mansur also, because we do have some questions which we should focus on the larger picture as well. Dr. Mansur is here with his double role. He is just like us, policy wonk, and he is also a leading banker, as Manjeet explained earlier. So it'll be interesting to hear as to Dr. Mansur, what you think of the spectacular success of Vietnam, the kind of achievements they've secured in Southeast Asia, and in what fashion that has been of some relevance to South Asia. I think from your academic and business perspective, if you could help us and our audience to appreciate this, then we can probably look at the achievements of Bangladesh even with clearer eyes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Vietnam has always been a puzzle to all of us, in the sense that the way it has its meteoric rise is phenomenal. We can only compare with the speed of that Vietnam has progressed in the past 3 decades, I would say, from 1990 onward, and see where the differences lie. So of course, Vietnam is centrally planned economy. In that sense, obviously, their leadership has a focus on economy. They have a vision to turn that country into something much more developed, and they have been executing that very meticulous. Let's take, for example, the comparison. I mean, we sometimes compare Bangladesh with Vietnam, but there are, in many ways, the comparison is valid. In terms of social development, in terms of many other fronts, we make equal strides. But on the export side, for example, led by foreign direct investment and so on, Vietnam is now exporting more than $260 billion, $270 billion. It's a huge, and it is. I remember last week we had about 10 days ago we had a lunch with Indian Foreign Secretary, and not the Foreign Secretary, Indian Commerce Secretary, and he was indicating that who would have thought 10, 15 years ago that Vietnam will be exporting electronic goods to India. So that statement itself speaks a volume. That means they have moved into the third step of the ladder, while Bangladesh is still in the first step of the ladder, which is the RMG. Vietnam's RMG is important. It exports about same level as Bangladesh, but their export share is 24%, whereas Bangladesh is 80% plus. So obviously they have done much better. They have been focusing on sustainable development, where I think we should do much more, and we have a lot to learn as well. Vietnam is really moving in that. Vietnam has been really successful in attracting FDI to such an extent that that sometimes it's also a negative side, that the domestic entrepreneurship may have been dwarfed by the flow of funds coming from abroad. But that being said, they have also developed an ecosystem. Like, for example, if you take the case of Samsung. Samsung, when it went to Vietnam a decade ago, along with that, they have set up an ecosystem where the middle and bottom part is the Vietnamese companies, and at the apex is Samsung. So they have developed the whole series of companies which are feeding into each other, and they are becoming also independently quite sizable and export leaders. So that is really helping Vietnam economy quite significant. So we have a lot to learn from Vietnam. Yes.
Just part of that very question on the economic side, you have beautifully explained it, but I think we are interested also to know as to how the Vietnamese model is especially relevant to vibrant democracies that Bangladesh and India are.
I would think that, well, we have a democratic system and we respect that and we value that. We're not going to change because of simply because of growth. So that's a given, that democracy should stay, should flourish, and should also further develop in all over South Asia. Because we have progressed with democracy, but we need much more progression with that. We have intolerance in our society, we can do that. But what you can learn from Vietnam is geopolitics. For example, Vietnam has been bombed and maimed by the American bombing. Who is the biggest trading partner of Vietnam? It's the USA. They're practical. They're not emotional like us. They're not stuck with Kashmir issue or this issue or that issue. They want to solve it in their greater interest or for future. And what they did is solve the problem with America, solve the problem of both people, establish the diaspora relationship very strong, and trade relationship which is very strong, investment relationship which is very strong, with whom the biggest enemy of Vietnam in the 60s and then early 70s. So that is where I see they are fundamentally different. Pragmatism. We need pragmatism.
I quite understand. I think similar perceptions exist in India. There's a lot of appreciation and respect for Vietnam. And as you rightly hinted and almost pointed out, that the political system that they have is their own choice. That need not, obviously be looked at in any other manner by vibrant democracies such as Bangladesh and India. Thank you very much. Let me bring in our third panelist, Madhu Singh, who is the senior most Tata figure in Bangladesh. Manjeet explained the importance of Tata's success in that country. It has indeed been a great success in Southeast Asia also, especially in Vietnam. So in a way, I think the question is natural. And the question is, what are the lessons the company, that is Tata's, has imbibed in charting its business strategy for the Bangladesh market in particular, and for other countries in South Asia in general?
So thank you, Ambassador Bhatia. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be in the august company of Dr. Mansur and Ambassador Nazia. And yeah, I look forward to some more interesting statistics comparisons like what Peter Rimmel mentioned. They were quite interesting. So I'll answer your question in two parts. Firstly, about our success in Southeast Asia and the ASEAN countries to be more in general, as we call them, and then I'll come to Bangladesh and South Asia. But before that, allow me a minute to talk about Tata Motors, as many of our viewers may not be fully aware of our brand and the business. So Tata Motors is the flagship company of the overall Tata Group, which has a market capitalization of upwards of about $240 billion and is a salt to software conglomerate, the largest private group in the country in India. And Tata Motors specifically has a market capitalization of about $42 billion and is the largest automobile company by revenue in India. Tata Motors also owns the British marquee brands Jaguar and Land Rover. And with that, the presence is almost 290 countries across the globe. Tata Motors standalone has a wide portfolio of products that include a wide range of cars, utility vehicles, trucks, buses, and defense vehicles. So you name a automobile, name a four-wheeler that you require, and Tata Motors has it. Now, looking at the two countries, the estimated GDP of Vietnam for this calendar year is about $369 billion. So that would be 36th rank in the world. And that of Bangladesh is just a little bit ahead of USD 378 billion, 35th rank. The figures could be debated slightly, but yeah, more or less both the countries are in the same range. But the GDP per capita in Vietnam is about double of what it is in India and Bangladesh. So the GDP composition of both Bangladesh and Vietnam shares almost the same pattern, about 50% plus from service, about 30-35% from industry, and about 13 to 15% from agriculture. In Bangladesh, the industry segment, as many of our panelists have said, has a major dependence on the RMG and textiles, whereas in Vietnam, there are several main industries like electronics, steel, food processing, wood industry, textile, tourism. And in Bangladesh also, the food processing and pharma is coming up in a major way. So this diversity in Vietnam is a very good thing. And I think the over-dependence on one sector in Bangladesh, the policymakers have realized that and are working towards coming out of that now, which will be a good thing to look at in the future. Coming back to your question, so Tata Motors' entry has been very successful in Southeast Asia. And I was particularly a part of the entry strategy for some of these markets like Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Philippines. So it wasn't easy, as most of these ASEAN markets are the backyard of the Japanese automobile OEMs, and the Chinese are also coming in very, very heavily. And Japanese have been a very dominant player for historical, cultural, and technological reasons. And I think those are the same reasons why the Indian automobile players are largely very dominant in the subcontinent. We have entered most of these markets in ASEAN only in the 21st century. And some of the learnings that we have had, that we've imbibed elsewhere in other markets are many. And I think one of them would be that do not mistake of treating ASEAN as one cluster. Many of us do. These are 10 different countries with hundreds of different customer requirements, and each market has its own local flavors and nuances. 5 of these markets are right-hand drive, and the 5 of these markets are the left-hand drive, which means they either drive on the left-hand side of the road or the right-hand side of the road, depending on the colonial heritage that they have had. And the import duties are different in these markets. Import duties, again, for fully built and the assembly vehicles are different. And products which may be a star product in one market may completely not be acceptable in the other market for the reasons of difference in the customer requirements and the customer tastes. And we have very well understood that. Secondly, we operate in such an industry which has a very high ticket purchase value. Each of my product is upwards of $20,000 to $30,000, and thus a very high involvement category. The importance of customer service in a high involvement category becomes very, very important. And customer service over the lifetime of the vehicle, which just cannot be overstated. Therefore, the spares and the service availability in the nook and corner of that country where you are present, it becomes very, very important. And if you look at Vietnam, to my mind, and I have traveled a couple of times to Vietnam, is two different countries, north of Vietnam and south of Vietnam. The consumer taste, the geography, and the way the part of the country is run is completely different. The other mistake that many of the new players make is that they try and be very aggressive, try and have very outlandish plans, and do not work a lot on the planning and the execution. And I think you need to be patient, and that's one of the learnings that we have had in most of the markets, that wherever we have been patient and stuck to our strategy, we have been successful. Companies who want quick results, and they are the ones who are forced to pack their bags and move. Coming to the second part of your question, I think we must know that Sri Lanka was our first export market for Tata Motors. In 1953, a Tata tipper was exported on sea, and that was the first market. And after that, we entered Nepal and Bangladesh. And all these countries are in the neighborhood of India. The degree of similarity in customer profiles in these markets is very high. Therefore, Tata Motors is not only a market leader in all these three markets, but a very, very dominant one. One of the major reasons for such a high market share is the suitability of the Tata vehicles for Bangladesh road and fuel conditions. And we not only customize, we make vehicles specifically for the Bangladesh market so that they can suit the overloading requirement, the road conditions, and the kind of fuel which is available in Bangladesh. And with our 67 service centers and more than 600 spare parts outlets, which are spread across Bangladesh, we have the best after-sales network in the country. And at present, we are catering to the entire gamut of commercial vehicles and passenger vehicles, right from 1 ton to the 50 tons. And other Indian players also have a sizable business. In Bangladesh, Tata Motors is present with its joint venture partner Nitol Motors for more than 3 decades. We were the first one to start assembly operations here. The foremost strategy that Tata Motors has always followed, and the learnings that we have imbibed, is developing products as per the market requirements. We've always reached out to the customers and captured their feedback as to what are the expectations in terms of product features, specifications, and attributes that suit the business requirements of Bangladesh. And we strongly believe in giving a complete peace of mind package to our customers, and that's why we are such a dominant market leader. And I think it is this approach of ours that we keep customer at the center of our entire decision making, entire strategy, and not just on a document, not just in a PowerPoint presentation, but actually in practice. Every decision that we make, we keep the customer at the center of it. And I think those are some of the learnings because of which we've been successful in these markets.
Thank you, Madhu. I appreciate that. I think from the viewpoint of companies which are trying to go into these markets, your observations are very useful. And I think you made a remarkable observation that don't make the mistake of treating ASEAN as a single cluster. I think that will reverberate. But let me now come back to Ambassador Samina Naz. You have been a distinguished diplomat of Bangladesh. You have served in India, and now you are presently posted in Vietnam. So I think in a way you are in the best position to help us to understand as to what is the secret of Vietnam's success in the domains of economy, national cohesion, and the management of external relations. Over to you, Ambassador. Ambassador Naz, can you hear me? Are you muted? No, you're not muted. Okay.
I think the screen is frozen.
Screen is frozen. Then we can maybe go to Dr. Mansur and then come back to her. I think that will be the best thing to do. So let me do that. Dr. Mansur, I have a question for you. Ambassador Naz, can you hear me? Not yet. Okay. Dr.
I think
Mansur?
she's trying to log back in. She has just quit, and I think she will try to log in. Some issue,
Okay.
some technical
Yeah,
issue.
I think then we will go back to her in a second. I think, do you think, Dr. Mansur, that economic decoupling from China is desirable and doable? Or the debate on this subject is stamped by too much of rhetoric and exaggeration? What should countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and India do for creating an enabling environment which attracts more foreign companies to move out of China and specifically to these three nations? Dr. Mansur.
Thank you. I think immediate decoupling from China is not a viable option. China is too big a arrangements in place which can take it has to be a gradual process of diversification, not a complete decoupling. Secondly, for countries like Vietnam or Bangladesh, we are very much integrated with the Chinese from China. And Vietnam, even if Vietnam is a pragmatic society, so they have had relationship with China, but at the same time, like in the US, and a lot of Chinese companies are relocating in Vietnam next door to avoid the leveling as a made in China. So Vietnam is actually benefiting the most from migration away from China. The migration away from China is happening for multiple reasons. We know that. The labor cost is increasing. This is not as good as it used to be 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Also, there is this issue of over-dependence on a particular country, and the COVID highlighted that aspect of it. That being said, at the same time, we have noticed, even in this COVID year, China received the highest amount of foreign direct investment globally, single largest recipient of FDI. So India has done also very well. Vietnam has done very well. So, but the Chinese one is particularly striking out because this is already the highest, and they made another record in this particular year where everybody was talking about moving away from China. So we have to be a bit pragmatic about relationship with China. Secondly, I think we need to maintain a relationship. Even I believe that India-China relationship is very important for Bangladesh, very important for the region, and very important for the global economy and for Asia in particular. Asia is going to be the centerpiece of the global economic drama by 2050. It is already, China is going to become the largest economy by in this decade. India is on its way also to become a very large economy. It's already in the 5th and 6th position, but it can easily move to the 3rd position in not too distant future if it goes resumes its growth path very soon. So India has that potential. I can see that ADB projections that China will remain now number 1, India will become number 3, Japan will be number 4, and Indonesia will come out also as number 5th, and the US is number 2, as the only country from Western world to be representing in the top 5. So that geopolitical aspect we need to calibrate into our whole economic investment and that trade relation that follows out of it. We cannot just shut one or the other. We have to interact with each other between India, China, and Bangladesh has to play that middle ground, balancing it out between the two major economic powers that we have.
Thank you very much. In fact, what you said makes a lot of sense. And in fact, many might even argue that there is a need for others to learn from how Bangladesh runs that calibrated approach with regard to all its neighbors. But let me go to Madhu, since I don't see Ambassador Naz yet.
She's back.
Oh, she's back? That's wonderful.
Yeah, she's back.
Ambassador Naz, then may I come back to you with the question? I'll repeat that so that you are able to. I was saying that you have been a distinguished diplomat of Bangladesh. You have served in India, and you are now presently serving in Vietnam. So I just wanted to hear a bit from you of your assessment as to how Vietnam has handled, these three important domains: maintaining national cohesion, running a very successful economic policy, and managing its external relations very well, from the geopolitical point of view. What would be your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Ambassador Bhatia, and my sincere apology. I have no idea why I got disconnected. So I tried to connect with my handset, but it's still on. I'm trying to keep it away so that it doesn't
Thank you for
create problem. Yeah. So about Vietnam, yes, I missed Dr. Mansur's comment, but I do agree what he said that, Vietnam, it's really, they're now doing wonders, and what was their biggest enemy now becoming their, good friends and trading partner. And that shows that they are moving forward. They are not like, they keep things separate. And most interestingly, even the present US ambassador serving to the Vietnam, he is even doing a rap video. It shows, wishing them Happy New Year. The Vietnamese cultural side, it's a new kind of, atmosphere is prevalent here. Coming back to the issue, I'm sorry, is it interrupting that my handset, I think also is on?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sir. Actually, Vietnam's the success, it is we know that it is the outcome of the Doi Moi process that started in 1986, and the recent progress, it's actually that it is gained much importance and comprehensive achievements in the recent years. Especially, they have certain plans for their economic development. As the National Party Congress, they set up their socio-economic guidelines for specific years. So for the 2016 and 20 period, Vietnam's success story, this is the most crucial time for them to come up so importantly, significantly. And as I said, their success story dates back to Doi Moi or renewal process. And 35 years later, it has become a market-oriented economy coming out from centrally planned economy, as Dr. Mansur was mentioning, but they're now trying to shrug off that tag, and now deeply they're concentrating on market-oriented and deeply integrated economy, transforming from a low-income country to a middle-income one, and restructuring the economy and reviewing the growth model of Vietnam in the direction of increasing the efficient use of all resources, and based on quality in the 2016 and 19 period was one of the major thrive for Vietnam's recent successes. And the 35 years renewal process that actually aimed for 30 years of implementation of 1991 platform. And then they came up with the 10-year realization of the platform, that the socioeconomic development strategy for 2011 to 20. And now they're looking forward to put forward orientation tasks for 21-26, along with targets and orientation to 2030, and with the national development vision towards 2045. So these are the guidelines. But if you look at the recent successes, and also during the COVID pandemic, even Vietnam very successfully handled the pandemic situation, which really helped them to reopening their economy and coming back to their the development track, even though they were having over than 6% GDP growth rate before 2020. But in 2020, it slowed down to 2.9%. But this year, again, World Bank and ADB and other international organization institutions are forecasting that, Vietnam would be, the rising star. And in we have noticed that Vietnam did a lot of recently 20 FTAs, 16 FTAs, and 14 of them already took effect. The very recent one, the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, EFTA, paving the way for increased trade between EU and Vietnam. And it's an ambitious pact providing almost 99% of the elimination of custom duties between EU and Vietnam. And it is expected to help increase Vietnam's GDP by 4.6% and its exports to the EU by 42.7% by 2025. While the European Commission has forecast the EU's GDP to increase by $29.5 billion by 2035. Analysts hope the trade deal will give a much needed boost to Vietnam's industries, such as manufacturing, as it looks to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And most recently, we have witnessed RCEP, the RCEP signing with the ASEAN and the other 5 countries in the region, which covers like 2.2 billion people with a combined GDP of 26.2 trillion. These are all helping Vietnam. And not only that, they also have a free trade agreement with the UK very recently, last December 2020. So this is also helping them. And according to investment funds, Vietnam will be the #1 destination in Southeast Asia this year, and which leading the role of capital flows is likely to belong to investors from Europe. Although there are traditional investors like Japan, South Korea, and Thailand, Singapore, but Europeans are likely to come in more heavily. And these would all help them. And they are now focusing on their country's development strategy over the next decade on 3 focuses, like institutional reform, improvements to science and human resources, and infrastructure development. So they are becoming like more ambitious and enthusiastic and looking ahead in a very firm and in a very steadfast way.
Thank you very much. That is a very useful response. Clearly, you are watching Vietnam very closely, and therefore Bangladesh is watching them closely. And I'm very confident that your colleague, the Indian ambassador in Hanoi as well, is studying and doing the same. And I'm sure both of you are even exchanging notes. Therefore, I think it's very important for us to remember that if there is a successful, classmate, we learn from him or her and try to proceed forward. Let me now come to Madhu, to you, and I'm going to now start blending some of the questions I'm receiving from the audience. And in this context, I'm giving 2 questions to you, but I'll be most grateful for brief answers so that we can take many more questions. The first question is coming in from Manjeet, actually, who has asked to explain to us as to how the Bangladesh auto market is different from the Indian and the ASEAN markets. So, 1 or 2 major characteristics of difference. And the other is our own question, which is, how are Indian companies perceived in Bangladesh? Please feel free to give a candid answer so that our members, our corporate players, could learn something new, not necessarily only positive thing.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Bhatia. So firstly, to answer how the Bangladeshi market is different from India, or let's say from the ASEAN. So one is clearly in terms of the emission norms. India has already moved to Bharat Stage 6, which is a Euro 6 emission norm, equivalent to Euro 6. Bangladesh, we still do not have an emission norm. And for that reason, we still have to customize a lot of our products. The second thing is that in India, Indian market has moved to very rated payload kind of a market, and more in terms of the regulations. In Bangladesh, we still see a lot of overloading happening. Having said that, the new highways that are coming up in Bangladesh, they have started regulating the payload and the overloading requirements. And I think that would go a long way in making sure that the transport and connectivity in Bangladesh is also much better. The other difference that you see in Bangladesh in passenger car market is that it's heavily loaded by the second-hand or the reconditioned Japanese cars, which get offloaded from Japan at very, very good prices. And that you don't see very much in ASEAN or in India. And ASEAN is also very different in that sense that the brand new Japanese markets or the Japanese cars and vehicles are very, very popular. Coming to the second part of your question, wherein you asked about the our experience in Bangladesh, and to give you a very candid feedback. So I think India and Bangladesh enjoy very strong ties ever since Bangladesh became a new country in 1972. And in my opinion, there just happens to be an imaginary line between the people of these two countries, which we call the international border. Otherwise, there are so many similarities about the culture, language, food, traditions, attire, taste, you name it. And I think no person who's not from the subcontinent can even tell the difference between an Indian and a Bangladeshi. Very, very difficult. It's one country to my mind. And in modern times too, there's a very deep cultural and societal link with India. Yes, there is a lack of awareness and information about India and Bangladesh among Indians and Bangladeshis, not to mention the deluge of misinformation and wrong inferences that we have. And I'll give you an example of both. Firstly, about the lack of awareness. So till I came to Bangladesh, I myself never knew that there are 54 rivers which come from India to Bangladesh, 54. And that's a huge link to the past, to the culture, to a very rich marine life, and a strong point of transportation between the two countries. The other example of misinformation and wrong inferences, there was a lot of debate and deliberation when IMF declared that Bangladesh would overtake India in GDP per capita. And in my opinion, it was a very futile discussion, as the fate and destiny of these two countries are coupled. Both countries have been growing together and prospering together. Products of each countries are loved by the consumers in each other's country. And I'll give you an example of two companies in the same sector of FMCG. Marico, which is an Indian company, but a strong market leader in Bangladesh. The Parachute is the #1 brand in Bangladesh in that segment, and customers swear by it. Pran RFL, which is a Bangladeshi company and one of the largest companies in Bangladesh, its products like chanachur and jhalmuri, the edible products are loved in many states of India. And Pran has recently exported its products to India through the inland waterways. So the kind of focus which is there between the two countries on improving the connectivity is awesome. And having worked here and living here with my family for almost last 2 years now, we have never felt we are in a foreign country. It's always been a home away from home. And I think I can say it very confidently on behalf of all the other Indians working in Bangladesh, that the kind of warmth, generosity, and hospitality extended to us is of the highest order. And we are really grateful for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are several Indian companies. I'll not take more than 30 seconds. In Bangladesh, in the FMCG and automobile sector, like Marico, Imami, Dabur, Himalaya, Asian Paints, Pidilite, Godrej, Sun Pharma, Ashok Leyland, Eicher, Bajaj Auto, and that list can just go on, which are perceived for their high quality standards. And more importantly, from Bangladeshi customer point of view, they provide the utmost value for money. And that's what the consumers in India and Bangladesh look for. They look for the highest quality at the best price, and that's the value for money that they're looking for. And all the Indian companies which are operating here are also working on the welfare of the society under their CSR initiatives. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. I can assure you that we would love to have some of your colleagues later on some activity or the other of Gateway House. But let me thank you for this detailed answer, and to essentially point out that while relationship is very good, Indian companies are thought very positively. The important thing that you underlined is that India needs to expand its awareness of Bangladesh. I think that is the central point on which expanded friendship would emerge. So thank you very much for bringing that point very well. I'll go back now to Dr. Mansur once again before I go to Ambassador. And here I would like to combine what Ambassador Suresh Goel is asking and what I was also planning to ask as well. Ambassador Goel, who knows that area well, he is pointing out that Vietnam had a lot of use of maritime connectivity with the rest of Southeast Asia. And here in Bangladesh, there is a potential value for the maritime connectivity through the Bay of Bengal. So in that specific context, Dr. Mansur, what do you think in general of the expanding connectivity between India and Bangladesh, and where do you feel we need to go? What is more that needs to be done by the two governments?
I think we have a great start on that. And the initiative, I must thank the government of India for taking the initiative on that front, and rightly so, because they are the biggest neighbor, and they should take that initiative up front. The connectivity issue has been underscored by the Indian government through line of credits to Bangladesh government. The total amount is about 7 billion plus, and it's being used to develop railways, road lines, bridges. Recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and our Prime Minister opened the India-Bangladesh Moitri Setu, which connects Chittagong port with Tripura and the Seven Sisters in the east of India. So these are very vital development issues for both Bangladesh and for certain parts of India, which are neighboring Bangladesh. I think Bangladesh suffered a lot, and part of India also suffered a lot when 1947 the countries were divided without any connectivity between the two, and that loss persisted for almost 3 to 4 decades, and that is a huge cost to us and cost to West Bengal and the northeastern Indian part. That is being now taken care of. We need that connectivity. We have also invested on power interconnection, which is a very important thing. We need to integrate with the Indian power system, and trade in power with India. It has started at the G2G level, but we have to make it more to P2P level so that private sector can bring in. So we have huge potential. I think both countries should take a very liberal attitude to each other and try to reach point like virtual free trade. Why not? I mean, these are very similar economies in terms of GDP, very similar per capita income now. And we shouldn't talk about the political issues that sometimes overtake the economic relationship, which is much more stronger. So I would say, take your eyes away from regional political dimensions and highlighting certain aspects which I don't want to specify, but focus on the trade, on investment, on connectivity, and Bangladesh and India relationship can really develop to a different level from already developed level, which it is. It's India, I think, if you take the unofficial trade and the official trade accounts, India is certainly the #1 trading country with Bangladesh, not China. But unofficial is unofficial. That's why we don't take it statistically. But de facto, India is the #1 trading partner of Bangladesh. And that relationship can really go to a very different level and will go to a different level if we have the right attitude at the political level and also at the business to business level, people to people level. Visa issue has been resolved by and large. Now we can get 5-year multiple entry visa, but it's only limited to 65 and older. It should be more generalized. If somebody is well off and so on, have 5-year multiple entry to Europe and America, why can't they go into India also for 5-year multiple entry? Eventually, I think we should even move to a free flow of people between the countries. The number of people visiting India every year from Bangladesh is 1.5 million. A huge number. And so this is because we like to be in India. There's a lot that India can offer next door to us. And in terms of culture, in terms of sarees, in terms of dresses, in terms of jewelries, they are all very attractive to us. So this cultural affinity, nobody can fulfill other than India. So we develop on those fronts in future and make the relationship very, very special, which is already special, but much more special than what.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have given a very powerful message here. Focus on the issues of economic cooperation, encourage greater flow of people, but you have to also encompass the political class in this broad message. And the moment we do that, your package will start working in a very ideal manner. But then, of course, you're not a politician, you are a policy wonk. Your message needs to be heard by everybody. including the politicians. Let me now come to Ambassador Naz, and looking at the clock where time is really now running out, I'm going to take the liberty, Madam, to combine two questions for you, and I would request a pointed brief answer so that people could understand. I know these are heavy questions, but one is a question that you would really like. First question is, ASEAN is perceived to be a great success, whereas the SAARC and BIMSTEC are struggling. What are your thoughts on this? And the second question, which I hope you would like, is with a woman prime minister, with Madam Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, in what fashion women of Bangladesh and the diplomats of Bangladesh, women diplomats of Bangladesh, feel empowered and feel more motivated, inspired to make contribution to the society and to the nation?
Thank you, Ambassador Bhatia. And I would try to be very, very brief on ASEAN comparison, or drawing the example from ASEAN to SAARC and BIMSTEC. Even though I think that SAARC and BIMSTEC cannot be at the same platform, because it's like ASEAN, SAARC is a regional cooperation, and BIMSTEC it's not. It's like a sectoral cooperation. So I would like to focus on more SAARC and ASEAN. So as we have recently witnessed that Vietnam was the chair for the ASEAN in 2020, and there were many developments took place. We all are aware about that. I would not go there, but why, if we compare ASEAN and SAARC, because the way SAARC started, of course, it is not there, and it is, this region has the most fastest growing region in the world with 1.25 billion of people, but is the least integrated region. These are my personal opinion. I'm not saying as a government representative, but I'm just saying from my personal point of view that there are political issues maybe there, but there are much more needed to be done within SAARC, because there are, especially during this pandemic situation, we saw that there was an emergency SAARC meeting, and the leaders came up and a special package also declared. So this need is there, and also there are so many sectoral cooperation could have taken place in SAARC, which sadly is not taking up. If we look at ASEAN, the intra-regional trade is 29 to 30%, whereas within SAARC it's only 5%, and the complementarity is not that high within SAARC. And what we in terms of trade connectivity, or in terms of sectoral cooperation or interregional investment, it's very less. And whereas you look at ASEAN, they are so economically and trade-wise so vibrant, so bonded. That's how the example of RCEP, and there are others. And even though they have their political differences within ASEAN, but they keep them aside and they focus on sectoral cooperation, to be regionally integrated, and with the whatever in every possible sector they can move. But in SAARC there are fragmented way we work, and I feel that there are many things we could do in the sector. If we take this pandemic example, that there are foot and mouth disease, which actually India loses $5 billion every year, if it affects seriously, and we heard about that low caste, which another nation, another country in the region suffer. So these all have effects within the region. So we can really go for focus on more sector development to first, to be taking the example ASEAN to flourish, so that there are very non issues which we have similar points. We can focus on that, IT park, regional investment zone. We can create that, and we can have digital economy. And as the SAARC was started with the idea of with the flying geese, that we all float together, develop together like flying geese. That concept, it's not there anymore. But there are many, regressive stand taking place within SAARC. Many institutions have been, shut down. Like out of 11 regional center, 4 already is not there working. So these are all, I think, regressive situation. So if we really need to look at ASEAN and take their best practices and their best work to follow, then actually we need much more regional integration. Apart from the issues that needed to be solved, that keeping that aside, we have other other sectors, other regional integration. We really, especially the connectivity, the railway agreement was there, but even as you have mentioned, the sea route, there are water connectivity, and even regional flights. Do we have all the direct flights within the region? We don't. So these, if we look at ASEAN, that how they flourished and how they reach now, like one of the vibrant economy in the whole world. So then SAARC needs to be, there are scope, there are, hope there in SAARC, but we have to keep our focus on the sectoral development. And on the second question, Ambassador Bhatia, of course, it is, our Honorable Prime Minister, being a woman, is one of the, charismatic women leaders. It's, Forbes magazine or any other international institutions or think tank, they say one of the, top 20, great leader in the world. But what I feel, it is not because of women or being gender. It's like, she is our Prime Minister. And when we look at, as you have said, that, especially set the tone for diplomats or the women diplomat, well, this is the time, our Prime Minister is leading the country for the last 12 years in such a steady growing way in a socioeconomic and all aspect possible, that, the women empowerment and advancement of women, it is one of the key pioneer issue for us. Not only within us in the region, but in the United Nations. We are, one of the country that, made possible the CEDAW Convention, operational, the rights of the child or any other girl child or other issues that relates to women's socio-economic development, or whether it's Commission on the Status of Women, any issues that Bangladesh is there, because we, as our government, our Prime Minister leaders, and also in our psyche, in our social and system, Bangladeshi women feel, that we can do work. It's just because I'm an ambassador. It's not, I'm not calling myself a women ambassador. I'm just ambassador. I'm doing the work, and whether it's men and women, I think the work is the same. So, but since we have to look at statistics or the numbers. It is very fascinating to say, since our independence in last 50 years, this is the time during our Honorable Prime Minister's guidance, Bangladesh has the highest number of women ambassadors. Right now, 8 serving women ambassadors. One is also in the, especially as an other organization, but at the ambassador level. So this is really a fascinating story for us. And now in the foreign service, we are 24% of the workforce. Of course, there are, since this forum is not about the gender parity or other issues to say, I'm just content myself. But women in Bangladesh, really, as you have mentioned, that 80% of our export are coming from that sector, the RMG. The 95% are women, they're working there. So from the grassroots worker level to the diplomatic level to law and judiciary to police to army, even peacekeeping, or even in the grassroots level, the women, holding their own business with the help of, digital system and the cell phone, becoming themselves self-empowered. These all are happening, and we feel like these are very normal or natural process of going
Absolutely.
with our socioeconomic development.
Absolutely, we accept that and we welcome those observations. They're very, very useful Now we actually have almost run out of time, so I'm going to still take the liberty of a moderator of a think tank based in India's business capital to give the last opportunity to Madhu. And I'm going to be unfair to him by asking two questions and requesting him to give sharp, short answers. One is a question from Smita Krishna, who is asking, how are Indian companies viewed in Vietnam? Because you have experience of Southeast Asia, so you are in the best position to answer that. And the other question that comes from me, which is, how are Indian companies coping up with the competition from Chinese companies in Bangladesh?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bhatia. Coming to Smita's question straight away, I would talk more from the Indian automobile companies' point of view. So we are still an emerging brand. We are still a challenger brand in that country. And customers are viewing the Indian companies as somebody who's providing better value for money. So there is an acceptance. And I think that acceptance is going to grow with the number of years. And there would be a time in the next couple of years, and specifically with the electric vehicles coming in, where the learning curve is very, very fast, then I think we would be at par with the Japanese players. Coming to your question in Bangladesh, how we are tackling the Chinese competition. So the domain of Chinese companies in Bangladesh largely consists in the electronics and the infrastructure project space. And in the field of infrastructure also, the projects assigned to the Chinese group is also a function of the degree of lending extended by the Chinese government. Like we have the line of credit from the Indian government. And likewise, both the Indian and Chinese governments are playing in that space by funding more and more infrastructure projects. Coming to the field of automobiles, specifically the commercial vehicle segments, Indian products are by far the market leaders, and they have proved their supremacy over the Japanese as well as the Chinese products because of the best value for money and the lowest operating cost. Chinese in the automobile sector, not only in Bangladesh, but in other countries also, have often flirted with the market. When I say flirted, they have come into the market, tried to sell a couple of vehicles. When they're unable to provide the after-sale support, they pack their bags and go. Customers are becoming very smart. They're becoming very, very unforgiving also. They don't give you a second chance. And the Indian companies here believe in providing the excellent service support, because you can sell the first vehicle to the customer, but you cannot sell the second vehicle till you provide a fantastic service support. And I think that ways, with that strategy, we have been very, very strong.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very pointed and helpful answers. Dear friends, we have reached almost the end of our program. I would now request each panelist to take 30 seconds to make observations that you wanted to make, but you didn't have the chance to do so. So let me begin with Dr. Mansur. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think Bangladesh has a long way to go, and so is India, and so is China. We need to work in a global and in Asian confrontational way so that we all can benefit from each other. And Bangladesh-India relationship in particular very important for at a higher level so that we can reach out to Delhi directly. And Delhi's attention should be, and other issues should not stop there. It should go beyond that. It should have a real free trade kind of relationship between the two countries. We deserve each other.
Thank you.
So if we
Thank you.
that, I think relationship will be much more enduring, much more big. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I know there's a bit of a connectivity issue on that, but Ambassador Naz, 30 seconds for you.
Thank you. What I feel that the topic of the issue, like Bangladesh, Vietnam of South Asia, I happen to say that, each country has the unique position. Of course, what Vietnam is doing in ASEAN countries, maybe Bangladesh is doing in the South Asian region, that perspective, this is being seen. But I think, these are actually, Bangladesh should be called that as the, as we are rising star in South Asia, or the most fastest economy, as our actually these inspiration, this spirit actually came from our great leader, our father of the nation, whose daughter is now our honorable prime minister, the torch bearer, that that led us to believe and make our Bangladesh the dream of our father of the nation, that it would be a golden Bengal or Sonar Bangla. So with that view, we are trying to relentlessly work towards that way, so that we really make Bangladesh an exemplary country for the whole world globally, not only in South Asia or Southeast Asia, but globally. So we are also, all concerned working in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you have our best wishes. Madhu, you have the last word.
Sure, Ambassador Bhatia. 3 points in 10 seconds each. Number one, the mobile and the digital penetration in Bangladesh is better than India, and I think that is going to drive the growth. Number two, Indians and Bangladeshis, and India and Bangladesh are not competition to each other. They are friends, they are partners, they need to grow together, and I think in each other's prosperity lies a better future. And quickly, number three, Bangladesh is already a part of the next 11, but I think it deserves to displace the first alphabet of BRICS, and I think that B belongs to Bangladesh, and the future belongs to Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very refreshing thoughts, even at the conclusion of this program. I think I'm quite confident that our audience has noted that there was a purpose behind this program. First of all, the panel was made deliberately diverse, representing the government, civil society, and business. And secondly, the purpose or the philosophy was to establish that we have built a lot of unnecessary walls around us. South Asia ending with with Bangladesh, and then Southeast Asia starting from Myanmar. This is a wall. We are trying to say here in Gateway House that the eastern neighborhood of India, particularly Bangladesh and the 4 Indochina countries, are our natural home. And that is the reason why we wanted especially to understand and study the relevance of Vietnam's model for South Asia, the way Bangladesh has learned from it, and the way India also needs to learn from it. Southeast Asia is a very natural priority domain for us. And here today, our friends, a distinguished diplomat, a distinguished policy wonk, and our own Madhu Singh, representing the Tata flag and India flag in that sense in Bangladesh, have brought this story very clearly out to all of us. I want to thank most sincerely our panelists. I also want to thank Peter Rimmel, our abiding partner. And I also really wish to thank Manjeet and our entire team, which worked hard on producing this program. I hope all of you enjoyed it. And we look forward to having all of you at our next webinar very soon. Thank you very much. And